All right, hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the Middle East Forum's weekly podcast series, Israel Insider. My name is Anaf Kalam, and I will be moderating today's discussion. We are pleased to be joined by Alex Selsky, a senior advisor to the Middle East Forum's Israel Victory Project, who is currently serving as a reserve major in the IDF Home Front Command Emergency Information Unit. He joins us today to give us a briefing on the top events currently going on in Israel. Mr. Selsky will speak for 15 minutes, followed by 15 minutes of Q&A from the audience. If you'd like to ask your question, you can do so by using the Q&A box located at the bottom of your screen to type your question. And with that, I will turn the discussion over to Mr. Alex Selsky.
Thank you, Achnaf. Thank you to all the guests. Good evening from Jerusalem and good afternoon to all those who look at their watch within the United States. Well, we had a very, very overwhelming week in Israel, and I have to say that again and again, it's very, odd and funny to provide the title for this webinar every time on somewhere on end of the previous week, Sunday, and each time I'm thinking that the title will be not relevant in 4 days on Wednesday evening. The question only is how irrelevant it will be, to what extent. And when I gave this, because we give the first blurb on Sunday, so I have to give my topic on Sunday. So when I gave it, the feeling in Israel really was that we kind of stuck, both in Gaza and in Lebanon, and politically, meaning all the sides fight, but no really game-changing things happen, and how we break through this situation. No victory in Gaza, no victory in Lebanon. Throughout Shabbat, there were attacks, more massive attacks on the north, on Tzfat, and the feeling was again that we're stuck both in Gaza and both in Lebanon. And then within 4 days, so many news, so many breakthroughs, that's when the blurb went out today with the same topic as it was at Sunday. I thought that people will smile at it. So let's go fast and see not only what happened, because what happened, you can read the news from newspapers, but I would like to give you the Israeli perspective to what happens, the Israeli feeling, what happens, how Israelis feel, how Israelis react, how Israelis live and feel what is happening. And when I say Israel, it's definitely not, Israel is not one group of people, as you definitely know. We are very, very striving democracy. And when it's Jewish striving democracy, so there is 100 opinions on two people. So as I told you, on Shabbat we experienced more massive attacks from Lebanon, and on Sunday already we had, we felt more and more talks about the upcoming need to escalate in Lebanon, because Israel cannot live with such a threat, and the government on its meeting on Monday, I think, added to the goals of the war a new goal, which was very, very clear, and many, criticized how come this goal was not included in the goals of the war. They added the goal to be able to bring back the evacuated Israeli citizens from the northern border. Or what does it mean that all the eyes turn to the north? And on Sunday, already, it was on Monday, it was very clear that, we shift our attention to the north, and then came very clear the disagreement. At least it was very much, PR'd and very much spoken out, the disagreement between the prime minister and the minister of defense about the about the action in Lebanon. Netanyahu spoke about the need to open a wider operation and maybe even ground invasion into southern Lebanon. And Gallant spoke more about the risks in such an operation. And then exactly we woke up to a very big political drama, which didn't come as a surprise to those who followed already, because Lieberman, in his interview to Maariv, I think a couple of weeks ago, said that very, very probably, very soon, Gideon Sa'ar will join the government. So the talks about it were already out, but it still seemed, very impossible, because I remind you that Gideon Sa'ar was, competitor of and the biggest critic and the biggest rival of Netanyahu within Likud. He went against Netanyahu on primaries, and he lost, and then he left Likud, took with him another big Likud leader, member of Knesset, Zev Elkin, and then they joined, they had, I will not go now into the history, but they joined then the party of Gantz, which they left during this war because of the disagreement, because Sa'ar took more right-wing, more offensive line closer to Netanyahu. And on Monday, we all were struck by the news of a political drama that there is almost signed agreement between Netanyahu and Sa'ar about Sa'ar's party having 4 MKs joining the coalition, while Sa'ar being appointed to defense minister and Zev Elkin appointed to health minister. And then it first of all, it has very, very, very wide political implication, not only political but geopolitical, because it means that if Netanyahu will have a stable government, and if all the leaks about the agreement are correct, so the agreement between them, they agree that Sa'ar joins and he provides stability to the coalition until the end of the term, meaning until 1926, meaning another 2 years. And the major implication of it is that Sa'ar is much closer to Netanyahu in his offensive, more aggressive offensive opinion about striking in Lebanon, opposing to Gallant, and it again, showed to all that all these talks about closer, more, wider war in the north are definitely feasible and possible. And more the publications were out, more we understood that it seems very serious. We saw Likud MKs and ministers speaking in media and advocating this agreement, meaning that they received approval from the prime minister to do so. And it proves that there is such agreement. And in the beginning, Sa'ar gave some SAR and Likud, they published some announcement about the fact that there is no news in the political situation, but very, very fast it was clear that there is such agreement. And then yesterday came, the biggest drama of this week, the pagers attack in Lebanon. First of all, I have to say that, it brought, this political drama brought, caused Israelis to feel, definitely those in the right wing were happy that it provides stability to the government. But anyway, I think for all or for many, it caused feeling of, very, very cynical atmosphere about the politics, even though it's, it's a legitimate, it's definitely a legitimate um, um, agreement. Okay, this is not the first time that the prime minister replaces a minister, definitely defense minister. We have, this precedent in 2016 when Netanyahu replaced Ya'alon with Lieberman, and so it's legitimate. But having, SAR being very anti-Netanyahu and saying very, attacking him, and now he agrees to enter, people felt very, feeling and taste of cynicism and very cynical political game, and also fear. What does it mean about Lebanon? Do we, on one side we have to fight in Lebanon, but on the other side it's a fear of a major war. And then comes yesterday's pagers attack. I don't have again to bring you the facts. I just have to tell you that people were very, very proud, even though Israel didn't take officially responsibility, but it was clear that it is very sophisticated, very complex operation, very well planned, very well um, executed. By the way, it's clear that it was planned before October 7th, and it especially shows that that October 7th happened not because we're weak, but because this conception that Hamas is not a threat. So we see that the army and the security establishment and the government did prepare and did take Hezbollah seriously, and Hamas not. And that's why we see that we were much more ready to Hezbollah than to Hamas. Now it seems clear. And today we saw another line of explosions of another more heavier communication equipment of Hezbollah. So far, it looks like amazingly planned and executed operation. It amazed not only Israel, it definitely amazed the whole world, and I think it's a very big, it's major deterrence to and message to our enemies and to all the world about Israeli capabilities. Today, we just saw the news that Netanyahu was seen with his cortege next to Mossad headquarters after the second wave of the explosions took place in Lebanon. And at the moment, on one side, I think that Israelis feel very proud of what they see. On the other hand, they understand that things will definitely lead to some kind of escalation. And as I'm in reserve in home front command, and usually every escalation, I'm called immediately. So everyone who sees me today, not on uniform, or hears me not in the army, tells, "Wait, how come you're not in the army? Like, no war yet." So, and I hear that people are not laughing. People like seriously asking me, "How come? So there is not a war yet?" And also very interestingly, today we saw that the publication of the news that was revealed that Hezbollah tried to assassinate Moshe Bogi Ya'alon, former Minister of Defense and Chief of Staff, and it happened before October 7th. But these news were released today in order to show, I think, to the Israeli public, to prepare them to the threat of Hezbollah and prepare them to the possible attack and escalation. And the last thing that I think is very important to mention, and this is the news from just 1 hour ago, the UN declaration with a very big majority against Israel. And we see also that Germany joins the partial embargo, so-called the stop part of the deliveries of the weapons. So on the other hand, Israelis, I think, feel very bad with it. They see how come the world doesn't understand that we fight the terror, that we fight the war for the West? How come it all can happen? And on one hand, this pride, and on the other hand, this very, very deep frustration and disappointment from the UN, even though we're already used to UN, but Germany, it's definitely very deep disappointment. So I finished my first part, and I will be very happy to answer questions.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the update, Alex. I'll start with a question here from Carrie Hillebrand, who asks, is there any evidence that one or more groups in Lebanon opposed to Hezbollah will take advantage of the crippling of Hezbollah to try to actively oppose them, or is this just wishful thinking?
It is a very good question. We hear a lot about well, if you know the history of Lebanon, Lebanon is a very, very split society, half Muslims, half Christians. And once 30, 40 years ago, it was we called it the Switzerland of the Middle East. It was very modern, very beautiful country. Anybody who knows how looks the north of Israel and Golan Heights now, imagine going even more to the north. We do have Christians, we do have Druze in Lebanon who definitely opposed to Hezbollah. But militarily and politically, Hezbollah is very, very strong. Even though today, definitely, I think we see, Hezbollah with these attacks seems, very weak, very embarrassed, very old-fashioned, very. Look, it's such a blow for them. So I don't know. But history shows that the Druze and the Christians don't really have the power, definitely not military power in comparison to Hezbollah, to oppose. But I hope, and I think that definitely the chances are much higher than before, that after this blow, after this humiliation, after Israel showed how weak really is Hezbollah and definitely weakened them more, I hope that the other groups like Christians, like Maroons and Druze will really rise. We saw during this war too, in some places in the southern Lebanon where Druze and Maroons and Christians, opposed, but it was not big enough. But they also cannot do it really. The Lebanese army is weak, and so I think even if they want, they cannot really. I hope now these attacks and these blows and this damage will help them to fight against the weakened Hezbollah. Inshallah, as we say now.
So with that all in mind, with the pager attacks and the remote explosive attacks from yesterday and today, do you think that this will provoke Hezbollah to retaliate massively, or do you think it'll force them to kind of hesitate and think twice before doing so?
Both possibilities sounds possible. On what I think that they definitely want to retaliate, and I'm sure that they will be pressed by Iran to retaliate. But I think that after such a blow yesterday and today, and yet things to come, we don't know what Israel holds. And by the way, we heard from Gallant today, and from I think some declaration from the prime minister too, saying, I don't quote, but saying generally that this is a new stage of a war, and we have much more instruments, in our tool basket. So, will they be able to do something? Will they be able to? Will they understand that it will ruin them? Because listen, Israel crushed them without firing one rocket and one bullet. What will be when Israel will go, hard? I think that this shows Hezbollah and Iran that Israel, even though Israel was not ready for Hamas, Israel was and is ready for Hezbollah. So please don't mess with us on this front, because for this front we're ready. And if you go on us here, we're ready to go until the end. By the way, we're already here. We heard the commander of the northern command of IDF that we are ready to go until the end. And I think that these attacks show that this is not only rhetorics. This is ability and capability, because again, yesterday and today I think shows that this is historic operation. No such operation ever took place. So I think that everybody understands that Israel is strong. Yes, we were surprised on October 7th. Yes, we didn't appreciate enough Hamas, but when we understand the threat, we are very powerful, we are very creative, so don't mess with us. I hope that Nasrallah and his friends in Tehran understand that, by the way, we still didn't see the retaliation for Henia's successful taking off this world, and so they promised us so much before, and they didn't execute still. So for them to shout again with holy words will just show again and again to the world and to their people how weak they are, and they will be even more humiliated.
Thank you. Now, you briefly touched on this in your discussion a moment ago, but how do these coordinated attacks align with some of the political drama inside the cabinet with the change of the defense minister?
Yeah, definitely. I related to this. I think that Netanyahu, first of all, listen, it's interesting. We heard, again, everything is from the open sources, that Israel didn't plan to activate this operation, this pagers attack yesterday. They were expecting to use it later on some, as part of some, again, assumingly of some other bigger plan. But as they saw that some of the militants, some of the Hezbollah terrorists were suspicious about the pagers, they understood that they have to, um, to go on it, because otherwise they can just lose this huge asset. Um, so we don't know if this political shift was in order to do something immediately, or it just felt together because of, as I just explained, this need to do it now. But we all definitely understand that if it's already started, the understanding of the prime minister that he has more stable government and more loyal to his policy toward North defense minister, it will let him be a much more in line with his policy in the North. And we also hear, by the way, that he also told to Amos Hochstein the representative of the White House and the negotiator that speaking simply, we have to fight and we will fight. So it looks like all the roads lead to Israel being ready to strike, and apparently to strike, because we cannot live like that. People will not get back to their homes in the north if we don't change the situation in Lebanon. And as it looks now, after 11 months of this war on this low level, we didn't reach the solution. So we have to fight and we have to show what we're capable of. And now we started to do that.
All right, thank you. Now, moving away from the north, we have a question from Eric Selkov, who asks, the Houthis attacked Israel directly and Israel has not yet responded. With everything else heating up, how do you think they'll respond?
The simple answer, I don't know. And the simpler answer, if I would know, I couldn't say. What I think, Netanyahu said something about the Hodeidah port. I remind you that previously Israel retaliated against Houthis by bombing the Hodeidah port, which is the most important port for Houthis. And by the way, it was clear that Saudis helped in providing the airspace and maybe even more for this for the strike. It's clear that this strike is definitely serving the Saudi interests. I don't know, but it looks like look, we see that Israel strikes and Israel retaliates. It sometimes takes time, but Israel does it and does it hard each time. By the way, I missed something very, very big. Israel did a very big ground operation in Syria. I didn't mention it, which also was a big blow for Iran and for Hezbollah, and it also was very outstanding. Israel shows great capabilities. The problem is, as I wrote it in my blurb, that so far it all looks as a very brilliant tactic achievements, but not strategic game changers. So Israel has to do something that will change the game, and we're not there still. So will Israel do something much bigger toward Houthis and Iran and Lebanon? Definitely not all together. And you see that Israel does it, one by one. And Israel, we finished with Gaza, and only then we we shift our attention to Lebanon. So I think that we don't have to rush. We call ourselves, the people of, we're ancient people, we're people of eternity. We have time. Not only Muslims have time. We have time. Believe me. We were here much, much earlier, and we will be here much, much later. So everyone will get his turn.
Now, in a similar vein to the question asked by Carrie Hillebrand earlier, Stephen Miller asks, please discuss the possibility of a non-Hamas Palestinian entity eventually assuming control of Gaza and the necessary steps to get to that.
Well, we heard, I think, even this week that I think Emiratis said that they're ready to send their troops, to participate in some kind of control of Gaza. But then we again hear the Saudis say, no, that they committed to resolution for Palestinians. I don't know. I'll tell you honestly, because I cannot trust any of these declarations, and I don't think that Israelis will trust any real other force than IDF. Listen, look at Lebanon. I mean, there is a UNIFIL international force. You know, does it have any power, any authority, any any ground control? Nothing. So Israelis will trust only themselves. We will trust only our army. I don't know. Until I will see it, I cannot believe to words, because don't forget, this is not for this week. We will have time to speak about it, but everything is under the shadow of American elections also. And I'm sure that Netanyahu waits also for that. And to see, many things will change, and many policies can change, and many cooperations in the Middle East, and not only, can change if there is a change in the United States, which less and less seems possible. Maybe also that's why Netanyahu understands that he has to act now and not to wait. I don't know. I don't know. There are so many uncertainties on this, so I don't know.
All right. Well, thank you. Now we have unfortunately reached the end of our podcast for this week. I want to thank you again, Alex, for taking the time to update us.
Thank you.
Of course. And for our viewers and listeners, please be on the lookout for the Middle East Forum's upcoming podcast email that would be landing in your inbox over the weekend. If you have not done so already, please also subscribe to our YouTube channel, where you can watch this series as well as over 400 of our past podcast episodes. We thank you all again for joining us and for your participation, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thanks.